Group 6 Podcast. Conspiracies, mysteries, cover-ups, cryptids. We talk about anything and everything, as long as it's interesting. For more info, any questions, or if you have some spicy info for us to talk about, contact us at group6show@hotmail.com.
All right, testing. I think we're good to go.
Group 6 Podcast. We actually have a name for this now, but that's really irrelevant information because we're going to be putting it in the intros when we release everything. So really, I'm quite redundant right now, am I, John?
Well, you know, the earlier years are times to experiment and to sort of find your voice, as many people have, impersonating the great Elvis Presley, which is the subject of our podcast today, isn't it?
It's funny you say that because one of my aspirations was to become an Elvis tribute artist.
Really? Interesting.
For some of them, Elvis impersonator is a derogatory term. Some people are not that uptight, but yeah, ETAs or Elvis tribute artists is definitely the official term. I know one of them personally, a friend of mine who I met and saw perform. Very nice guy. Huh. Anyway, yeah, that was something I did want to do a couple years ago. But then I lost my voice and I couldn't really do it. Plus, it's a bit expensive trying to be Elvis. Doing just a run-of-the-mill band is,
Well, I imagine him being very tall, which, I don't know if the listeners know, but you're not super tall in real life.
I'm 5'9".
Yeah.
Elvis was... He was around 6 foot, I think.
I think he was. I imagine him being not short, but not a giant.
He's imposing, at least, just a little bit imposing.
Yeah. Anyway, that's interesting. You've done quite a bit of that stuff. Elvis tributes. What was it? Journey cover band stuff.
That's my current project I'm working on. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so you might know the appeal then of kind of pretending to be someone, channeling an identity into someone. I almost think that when people wish that Elvis were still alive, it's like now he's a more powerful force because he's dead.
Or is he?
Well, you see, that's the thing. Whether he is or whether he isn't, the estate is reportedly making far more money now a year, now that Elvis is gone. So it's like... I don't know what it is. I can understand the temptation of people to say he's still alive. You're quite sympathetic, I've heard, to the Elvis is still alive thing.
I don't want to go conspiracy theorist about it, but just looking at the evidence, I entertain the possibility that he may have faked his death and chose to start over again.
Because there's a lot of sightings around here, actually. Particularly Ottawa. Ottawa's got tons and tons of Elvis Presley sightings.
And they have the Elvis Sightings Society, whatever it's called, in Ottawa, based out of there.
Yeah, something like that.
Really, it comes from the huge urban legend of Tweed, Ontario, which I'm quite familiar with. I'm from the area. That Elvis is indeed alive and well and living in Tweed, or perhaps frequents Tweed.
Yeah, very strange choice.
I mean, it's become so popular now that they have an official Elvis festival there that ties into the official Elvis Tribute Artist Festival, which the winner of that can go on to compete again and go into the very official, sponsored by the estate.
Sure.
Going back to my friend who is an Elvis impersonator, or ETA.
Right.
He was in the top 15 the year because he won the very first Tweed Elvis Festival.
Also, they've capitalized on that. I wonder, maybe it's a conspiracy between the family the mayor of Tweed, if they have one. I'm not quite sure if they'd have one, or it would just be mayor of Hastings.
It would be a reeve.
The reeve of Tweed. Is that still a thing? I always imagine that as a very old-fashioned title.
It still stands. Madoc has a reeve. My township has a reeve, who's also my aunt.
Oh, interesting. Well, you would know then. You know, my grandfather was a politician in the area, actually.
Really? Really?
Yes, he was for many years in different capacities.
Well, what was his title?
Well, I mean, he was a cabinet minister for a while in Ontario. You know, not federal, but in Ontario, and mayor down in the county, which is an area around here. We call it the county because there is only one county, even if you're from another county. And I imagine Elvis would actually really like visiting the county. I imagine that is a place where he would belong.
If you want to disappear, you know, you go any of these small towns around here. I mean,
absolutely.
There is a story on the Elvis Sighting Society. I told you about this. It was a sighting in Tweed, an account by an anonymous person. So I do realize that if ever somebody is anonymous about it, it's automatically questionable. But the story is quite detailed and, you know, seems kind of genuine. I just want to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Interesting.
I entertain this theory. I don't outright believe it because there's no proof either way.
Well, you know, it's interesting because it's. I don't think I'm as sympathetic as you are, but I find it fascinating and also interesting because I did not realize. I read this. Elvis would be 80, so quite conceivably, if he had lived and he had faked his death, there's a chance that he could be alive today.
As the legend goes, he got off.
What would he look like now, though? I mean, like he
I seem to imagine maybe he got himself back into shape, went back to karate,
right,
and you know, got his life back together because that really. The touring life and his health really took a toll on him. He had numerous health problems that have been reported by people close to him, like his bowel problems and obviously he was on a lot of drugs too.
Yeah, karate. That's interesting because the instructor that gave him his I don't know how far he went. In the system, but is actually the same system that I studied under and became a second Dan black belt. Not quite. I shouldn't be giving that away. I'm a registered weapon, but I couldn't really hurt you. I was probably the least talented. Guy who taught me, too, is he's had his controversial... We'll be talking about him next episode.
So you have a very particular set of skills?
Very particular set of skills. I don't know. I think that it was a pretty lenient system, the one that I studied under. I don't know. The guy was not usually present. The 8th Dan black belt, but he was up in a different part of the province and left his 4th Dan, technically a master, you know, and she taught me. I think she was 4th Dan, 3rd or 4th. 3rd isn't master, which I don't know. That's a kind of a big deal when people get their 4th Dan because it's like that gives them. It's like grade 8 in Ontario for conservatory piano. That gives you the right to teach other people. If it makes any sense. But you wouldn't listen to, like, a 2nd Dan black belt. Like, I wouldn't start my own karate class or taekwondo was really mostly the, I don't remember what, I think it's Universal Kung Fu Do, the system that Elvis and I studied under. But, you know, apparently it's a very kind of important thing. Technically, anyone could start a school, but like you really should look for a 4th Dan.
I did read up that pretty much anybody can start up a karate school and or any other kind of martial arts school without any qualifications.
Yeah. I've known people who faked their qualifications to start. Not this guy that I was talking about. But there have been people who have cut corners because they want to teach mixed martial arts, and you need a whole bunch of different degrees to do that.
Yes, the MMA is quite popular. I have a friend. I can't remember what he studied, but he ended up. You know, I'm not even going to go into this because he did get a pretty nice title of Student of the Year, I think, 1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But he took his martial arts training really seriously. I let him 1-inch punch me. It was kind of painful. Great friend though. I mean, he wouldn't.
Well,
he wouldn't,
he would have to be if he was going to give you a 1-inch punch.
He wouldn't hurt a fly unless
Unless the fly asked him.
Yeah, he's a very, very nice guy. I mean, anyway, back to what you were talking about.
Yeah, and actually, do you know what? Back to what you were talking about, because I cut you, it was like 3 minutes ago now, but I cut you off on something that you were going to say about Elvis. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what it was.
Oh, you can't refresh me?
Something about Tweed or the contests.
Oh, the contest, yeah.
Possibly it was something.
I think I already mentioned that. Yeah, it happens every year now, and
yeah. So I mean I wonder why Canada. That's the only thing that I don't really understand. I mean, if he's from Tennessee, the place where Sam McGee came from, why is it that he would come up to this cold land where Sam McGee didn't really like being, did he? That's why he burned himself.
I would imagine if most of the sightings are true. I mean, I get the impression that if he's alive, he would tend to move around a lot and maybe even stay at Graceland a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no doubt in my mind if he's alive. Priscilla, Lisa Marie, they probably know.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't it strike it odd to you that for spiritual reasons or whatever, he always liked his bedroom private, so they keep it private even though he's dead? Do you think maybe he might stay up there sometimes, and that's why visitors can't see his room and his upstairs?
Well, I mean, there's something to be said for knowing the difference between a convenient explanation and the truth. That's a convenient explanation, but it's a bit too convenient. It's a way of hand-waving.
I mean, being at Graceland myself, I do have to admit that I really I felt kind of emotional at his grave. Because you can see his grave.
Okay.
You can get right next to his grave.
Was he buried at Graceland?
Yeah, his body was reinterred into Graceland.
Huh.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's under we'll get back to this, but it's under a whole bunch of concrete.
Okay.
So that raises some questions, but what I want to get at is
But I mean, don't you feel like the simpler explanation is it's fucking Elvis and people don't want to dig up his, because people would. With the cult that was around him, there's absolutely somebody out there who. Well,
I think that's why his father had him moved to Graceland, because he was in another grave, and there were grave diggers attempting to dig him up.
Yeah.
Either that, or he was afraid they were going to do that, so he was like, "Let's put him and his mother in Graceland together."
Right. But anyway, I actually did cut you off, and I'm doing it again here. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
I cut you off to tell you that I was cutting you off.
Good conversations are like that. So.
Yeah.
No, I really. I like to think I can feel an eerie feeling or a spiritual feeling. I mean, I'm not religious in any way, but I do believe in, energy and auras and all that.
Sure.
When my grandpa passed away after a while, I was in the basement one day and I could feel him near his tools.
Oh, and you know what? It's the same thing. I think there really is truth to. See, about religion, it's a complicated subject. If we ever do a podcast on religion, I change what I think my religion is every week in some ways. Generally very skeptical, and for that reason, I am actually more open-minded, I like to think.
I just happen
ironically, you don't think of skepticism as being open-minded, but it kind of is.
It is a little bit. I mean, I like to listen. I like to entertain anybody's thoughts.
Right, yeah.
I like to hear about it. It interests me.
Right, sure.
But anyway, what I'm getting at is auras and spirits and all that. I definitely think a bit of people's energy stays behind after they're gone. See, I felt my grandfather in his basement near his tools.
Yeah.
He was a very hardworking man, and he really liked to. But anyway, at Elvis's grave, I felt very emotional, and it felt strange to me because I do tend to swing towards him not being dead, but I did feel emotion at his grave. I don't know really why.
Yeah,
it could be just
understand.
because I'm experiencing this once in a lifetime thing.
Well, you know what? They've compared, getting back to religion, they've compared the Elvis cult to religion. And I almost feel like it's appropriate because for someone who really feels a connection to their own faith, there's an incredible, intense spiritual experience with, some of these rituals, or even people praying or whatever it is, whether you believe in it or not, or even if you're skeptical. Like, I mean, it's something that I feel, even if I'm skeptical, and I can say, I don't know if I can really say that, let's say Jesus came back to life or anything like that. Like, I would never say that Jesus came back to life because no one can prove that. And with my rational brain on, no offense to anyone who is Christian out there or anything, at this stage in my life would say, I don't think that's true. And yet I feel incredible spirituality in the Mass.
Yeah. Not getting into the whole Jesus thing.
I know that that's controversial and it's religion, and we don't really want to do that and stuff like that. But no, it's a spectrum of different ideas.
I kind of like the thought of him just being a humble carpenter.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that there's something to be said for wanting someone to not be crazy.
Maybe
start a religion. For someone not to be a narcissistic psychopath and start a religion, that would be nice. Because Jesus is the closest thing we have to that, I would say.
I mean, the guy was
he was egotistical, but he was kindly at least, except to the people in that temple where he whipped them and all that stuff. And the verse about the sword.
I'm not as well versed on this as you are.
No. I'm fascinated by I can't believe in it, but I'm fascinated by it.
Maybe I watch a little too much Indiana Jones, and that's where my humble carpenter thing comes from.
Possibly.
I don't know, but
possibly.
Anyway, I think you're right in terms of Elvis, because he was really the closest thing on this mortal earth to being a god.
Oh, as close as you can get, I would say.
I mean, that is if God doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, I think that, there's something about the entertainment industry now that's replaced who our old idols used to be. They used to be politicians. They used to be, great dictators or empire leaders, like Hitler, for instance. But then we wised up to that. We saw that wasn't a good idea. So now we worship entertainers. We worship musicians, and we worship actors. And those are the sorts of people that are the focus because there's constant exposure to them in our new temples, the movie theaters, the stadiums, right?
I like this. I gotta admit, I was pretty shocked and a bit worried when Harrison Ford had his plane crash.
Oh, I don't blame you.
And I felt odd. Just why am I worrying about this guy? He's just an actor.
Well, he's one of the last living stars because he was not just known for one thing like so many people are. Like Harrison Ford, he is Indiana Jones.
He is.
He is Han Solo.
It's not like James Bond where you're used to this revolving door of actors making their own portrayal because the character is more than just one man.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel differently with Indiana Jones because all the cards fell in place for him.
Nobody else could have done that. They could have. But...
I mean, this is something we can discuss another time because there is a rumored reboot happening. But we'll save that for later.
No, please don't.
We should save that for later. We should definitely save that for later and get back to the Elvis thing. Yeah. Or else we could talk for an hour about that.
You already know our feelings on that, just based on that 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm kind of open just to the circumstances, but like I said, let's save that for later.
Yes,
we'll put that down as a future
podcast.
A future podcast. Okay, good. We're making up stuff as we go, as Indiana Jones would say. I'm making this up as I go. Okay.
Yeah. Good quote. I did like the reference.
So star worship,
Elvis. That's like a modern day god, I think. And if you look at it, in history, living people were gods. Caesar was worshipped as a god, and Pharaoh was worshipped as a god.
And if you look at LaVeyan Satanism, anybody who practices that they consider themselves their own god.
It's interesting. Now, with LaVeyan Satanism, I find
they're some of the nicest people.
Do you know what? I agree. I think that it's also, in places, it's one of the most profound philosophies that I've ever come across. Like, one thing that they've said, don't be pretentious. You can be proud, but don't take credit for other people's work. Don't be a social vampire that manipulates people and sucks out. And basically just contribute to the world and gives, like what I was saying the other day about giving something back. Like, they're against people who take and give nothing back. And I find that uplifting.
As a person who I kind of identify myself as LaVeyan.
Interesting.
Just because my best friend got me into it, and I really like the philosophy of it, and I like the fact that
this is gonna give fans so much speculation.
See, this can go into the religion podcast.
Yeah.
I'll just say to close it off.
Yeah, for sure.
I like indulging. I like indulging in the things I like.
Yeah, sure.
And Levan Satanism is like treat yourself as a god and indulge in what you love and
don't waste your life.
And don't waste your life.
Exactly.
I mean, I take that really to heart because nothing I love more. Other than my fiance, nothing I love more than music. So I really indulge in that, and that's why I'm chasing radio as well on the side.
Yeah.
But my main focus is to become a singer. So.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean.
Definitely, Elvis would be on top of my inspirations. You can't not worship the guy if you want to be a singer or a performer. He was the original rock star.
Absolutely.
Well,
he was. There's racism involved. Let's be fair. He brought black style to the mainstream, and he was able to popularize that.
He was really able to bridge that racial gap.
Yes. Yeah.
Through he. Say what you want.
I understand the criticism of him taking too much space up that could have been filled by black artists. Like, I do get that criticism. Mind you, it wasn't his fault that cultural reality existed, and it also helped black artists become more accepted. So I think that for his time, that might have been more appropriate.
I really think he opened the door.
Because there was no other way. I think
it.
Mind you, we're white people saying that.
As sad as it is, it took a white guy to open the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, who cares how it happened? It happened, and as a result, a lot of those guys that he covered really did get some recognition out there. Even though I do tend to agree that Chuck Berry is one of the architects of rock and roll.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
If not the originator of that stuff.
Well, I mean, and even his performing style he took from it. But I mean, the man was undeniably talented and undeniably charismatic. I don't think that anyone could have captured audiences in as smooth and as natural a way that he did. And he had that kind of style that I think men have emulated after him, that kind of smoothness that you just didn't see.
Yeah, it's just like, it's like clockwork.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And very effortless.
But smooth, not the fake mechanical clockwork. Yeah. It's fake maybe,
it's effortless is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. He makes it look effortless and natural.
And I think
charisma is just being fake in a way that looks natural.
There's just something you can't really pin. You can't define about Elvis. There was just something about him that made him attractive in many ways to many people.
Yeah.
Not only just the music, but the
his
women.
His style, his life, the women, sure.
The women loved him. I mean, they were fawning over him.
Absolutely.
I mean, parents hated him
because he was.
Some men probably hated him just because of the women.
Hey, I'd probably be envious too if I were back there in the 1950s.
But Elvis was also quite humble. I mean,
for someone in his position,
he didn't try to be anybody. He just wanted to be Elvis Presley.
Well, do you know what? The most original people are. I think that wannabes mimic others.
It's really sad the price he paid to be Elvis Presley, though, in the future.
Yeah.
In his, 30 plus years that he did music. It's kind of mind-boggling to believe that he was in the music business for 30 years because, it seemed like he left way too soon.
Exactly. But we don't count the Vegas years, do we?
Dude, we count the Vegas years, man.
We do count the Vegas years?
He was definitely defining himself when the Vegas years
came
out.
I mean, I have to admit, when I think of Elvis, I think of Nashville, absolutely, and I also think of Vegas. They're equal in my mind. But maybe I'm also thinking of the Elvis tribute artists alongside Elvis.
A lot of people do both.
It's all the same.
A lot of them do both.
Yeah.
They'll do 50s, and then they'll do the 68 comeback.
Yeah.
Recreation. Then they'll do Vegas. Some people strictly do one or the other.
Yeah. I think that the mere fact that people conflate the two and think of impersonators means that he is truly great, because he's no longer an individual. He's a part of culture.
They say it's the finest form of flattery.
Absolutely.
And that's how they take it. They take it's extremely hard. They're not trying to be him. They're trying to preserve his legacy and make people who miss him happy. Or or give people a chance to see the magic.
Wish that we could have been there.
Because a lot of a lot of young people love Elvis too.
Oh, absolutely.
I
yeah.
mean, he's a very universal artist.
is.
He's transcendent, and he will be forever. I think. As long as tribute artists exist, they're preserving that legacy.
He's been long enough to be there forever, and even if there's no memory of him, every age has a stereotype that kind of lives on. And I think that if we're still specific enough to think of the 50s as a stereotype in 100 years, the 1950s, I should really say, and maybe we will, because as the years went on, the defined stylistic eras became smaller, then Elvis will be at the top of that. And I think that when people think of the 1950s and the 60s, the early 60s, that is an image that comes to their mind. They think of the smiling Americana suburban family, yes, but they think of Elvis when it comes to pop culture.
They think of Elvis, dominating the charts, shaking his hips on Ed Sullivan,
Yeah.
then getting shot from the waist up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny the shit you see today
Yeah.
compared to Elvis. He was so tame. People's standards of
I think that
kind of dropped.
what's implied is always more seductive, literally. Because seducing, what is that? That's bringing someone in deeper.
I mean, and
That's-
Elvis didn't have to take off his clothes to do it.
Exactly. He made you curious. He made the women and the men who secretly maybe found him attractive chase him.
I mean,
Look,
you can't admit Elvis was, definitely he had something about him. I don't know if it's looks or if it's the swagger of the voice. It's probably all of it.
Probably.
I mean, he wasn't a bad looking guy. You really need to be
not.
you really got to be mature enough to admit that
Oh,
without having any connotation. I mean, I'm not afraid to say I think Elvis,
Well, I don't know. I think it's silly that
I wouldn't complain if I looked like Elvis, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's silly that there are some men that are I don't want to admit that another man's attractive. I don't really know why.
No, it's not about that. It's just
I like to think that we live in I guess there's jealousy and insecurity. I like to think that we think in an age where like nobody would be insecure if anyone thought, oh my God, you might be gay or you might be bisexual, whatever.
You see, there's another thing we can get into. Like, we need to get off that stigma.
Exactly, because then people will admit to it, and then it doesn't even need to imply anything. Because so what if it did?
So what?
Yeah,
So what? Elvis was good looking.
exactly.
I wish I looked like Elvis.
All right.
I mean,
Well, I mean, women are like that around attractive women. Absolutely, they are. They're well known for in general anyway. If there's an attractive woman out there, now a straight woman might have a different taste in a woman that she finds beautiful than a heterosexual man or something like that would find attractive. Like gay men are often the same way. They might say this woman is beautiful.
I think women, if they're all close and stuff, there's a support group where they say, hey, yeah, you're beautiful.
Well, I mean, of course. No, but I mean, like, women that, would never be interested in having sex with another woman or being intimate with another woman, they will admit that woman is attractive, or they'll say that woman's hot. I want her body. And there's more of this, and I think that a lot of men are like that more secretly, but they don't. And then there's some men that aren't like that. They're they're super hetero, and they don't really have any sense of that. But there are a lot of men that are.
Most of them are either homophobic or they're trying to escape that stigma.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm straight as an arrow, but it's just something you can't deny.
Hey, I wouldn't mind if I looked like Elvis either.
It takes a man to acknowledge that a lot of factors were in play as a form of Elvis's fame.
Yeah.
Just simple. So we'll bookend that because that can go on forever too.
Well, I mean that's a separate topic too, isn't it? We just get off on tangents, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
But yeah, Elvis obviously, his attractiveness helped a lot, and maybe even because of TV made that a more important part of being an artist. Because no doubt people would swoon over artists in the early days of recordings, but they couldn't see them unless they were on Broadway or someone was touring, and then they got to actually, see the artist in person. Their voice might have been appealing. Their voice might have been seductive. Sometimes I hear an artist that I think has like a sexy voice on the radio today, and I haven't even seen a picture of him. But this is the interesting thing. Elvis did that, and people could see him because he was in the 50s when television started to become more important. And then that swagger and that style and that charisma and that just fluid kind of smooth sexiness, you know. That. Although I don't think of him primarily as a sex symbol, though.
I don't. He definitely wasn't primarily that. Was he though? Yes.
Oh no, he was. But like, you know, when people think of Elvis, they don't think, oh my God, he was hot.
No, they think he was.
He was a genius.
He was an entertainer.
An entertainer. Genius is maybe a bit too pretentious.
Oh, he had his smarts.
Word.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, a musical genius. I mean, although he's probably smart too.
Oh, he was. You got to be good at music. The way he could work vocal melodies, even just that alone, and his range.
Yeah.
And really solid falsetto as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I say that word a lot, by the way. You've probably noticed already on the third podcast. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean,
I like agreeing people.
It's
when
absolutely
they agree with
absolute,
people.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You sound like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought I just sang.
That sounded just like. Do I?
Duh.
I've been driving Lincolns before it was even cool. I'm hipster Matthew McConaughey. I can't do him.
Do you like peanut butter banana sandwiches? I'm just curious.
You know, I've tried it. Not bad.
Yeah, I like them. That was how I found out about him. Was like so many people, Elvis. My dad was like, he had to fly back to Tennessee or whatever because they made peanut butter banana sandwiches there that were done the way he liked them. Now, that's kind of stupid. Like, I'm sure he could have bought peanut butter and bananas anywhere. But there is definitely something about that.
It's a weird, delicious combination.
He was the original kind of kid at heart, like we all are nowadays when we eat breakfast. Like, nobody's healthy at breakfast. Nobody feels any shame eating. Breakfast is really the most unhealthy meal of the day, the way we do it right now. Like, we've got, you know, sugary cereal. We've got coffee with tons of sugar.
I don't deny.
Yeah.
I definitely don't deny the fact that he was a kid at heart. I mean, that money really gave him a lot of opportunities to be a kid at heart.
Yeah.
Graceland, he had, you know, a go-kart track, whatever. He had horses, you know, guns.
Oh yeah, sure. Well,
but he was.
Hey, well, guns are. You could argue that in the soul of every 40-year-old man is a little boy, and you'd be correct.
Yeah.
Most of the people who bought helicopters at the As Seen on TV store where I used to work at were older. They weren't kids. They were adults who wanted to have fun and rediscover their childhood.
I mean, yeah, there's always a part that still wants to hold on to that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's where I started with, you know, airsoft and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because that's, albeit a painful way, but it's a way to get your childhood back of, you know, playing guns.
Oh, sure.
No, I use airsoft stuff more as props now for, like, films and stuff, but whatever.
Well,
they make very good props.
When we were kids, we used cap guns as props in our home movies.
Cap guns.
And I remember a very funny thing happened where we played a game of Russian roulette with the cap guns. And my father found out about this, and for some reason, he was furious with us, and he was like, you cannot play that game again. And I was like 14 at the time, which makes it even sadder. And I was like, why? Well, Russian roulette, that's the game where you're gambling, basically, but with your life. Don't you think that's kind of bad? But if I'm not doing it, then I was like, I don't even know. I don't even know anymore. He was also kind of one of those people that he had this thing about gambling, but like nobody ever taught me that gambling was denigrated by certain religious groups in the past. So he always assumed that I thought gambling was wrong, but that's a cultural thing. So I didn't grow up thinking that it was a bad thing. So I was like, what? Gambling's bad? And I guess if you look at it, you know, objectively, you could say that there are negatives to it. Like, you know, people are addicted to it and it does ruin lives. But I think that to ban it would be like banning alcohol. That didn't really work.
It didn't work.
People would do it under the table.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with gambling. You just, you know, it's like everything. You got to know your limits, and you got to, you know, be responsible about it.
Well, older morality was, you know, it was by association. Like, well, if you're playing cards, then you're gambling and you're drinking and you're doing all this stuff. Or, you know, actually, I think that is a lot of the. Well, I mean, it was a big reason behind why a lot of parents didn't want their children to listen to Elvis. he's associated with rebellion, and absolutely the racism. He was associated with the black style of music, and people were like, well, they might start acting like the colored people.
And then there was the sex thing as well.
Absolutely.
He's shaking his hips.
Yeah.
He wants to get in your pants.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I don't know where I was getting at with that, but whatever. And like, oh, he's the devil was the big thing. It's the devil's.
Sure.
It's the devil's music. Rock and roll.
Yeah.
And Ozzy Osbourne is probably just like, they're way ahead of me. I made the devil's music. Rock and roll.
There's something about a British accent, though, that, like, you just can't be badass in the same way. You can be badass in a different way, but, like, you can't be badass in the way that an American could be. Or a Canadian who is posturing as an American.
Imagine if Elvis was British. I guess you could say the Beatles were the British Elvis, though. Times 4.
Oh, sure. I mean, they were bigger, and more people know more Beatles music today than they know Elvis music. But everyone is aware that they were aping artists like Elvis, and the Beatles sort of pushed rock and roll into the mainstream on that side of the Atlantic, but Elvis pushed rock and roll into the mainstream in general.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't disrespect the Beatles. I mean, they were great artists. Maybe greater artists than Elvis, just purely as artists.
They were a great band.
Yeah.
They were a great band. I mean, the writing team of Lennon and McCartney. Genius.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another.
And they quit when they were ahead, too. So you didn't see him old and crazy.
Yeah,
well, we did. We see Paul McCartney old and
Since we're
slightly
talking
crazy.
about death conspiracies, how about the Paul is dead thing?
Oh, that's funny. I was like, what the?
Now that one I don't believe. That's complete crap. But it's funny.
I mean, it happened in what, 66? That was when the news first came out that Paul was apparently dead.
Oh man, it's quite obvious I'm not dead.
Well, it is. I can't really do a Liverpool accent. Well, I'm.
Yes, we are from Liverpool.
I'm John Lennon. It's the problem. Well, it's about the Beatles. As listening to our music, talk's an old-fashioned thing in the working class.
You trying to sound like Ringo?
Well, sort of. I think, Ringo is maybe one of the most... I don't know. Now I'm just getting weird. Now that I'm aware of how fucked up I sound even more fucked up.
Yeah. That's a good impression of the Beatles, though. I think it really encased it.
Liverpool's accent. I mean, everyone would know what I was doing an impression of. It might not be accurate.
Oh, if you do it,
it might not be
everybody
accurate.
knows it's be like, yeah, we are from Liverpool, aren't we? Yes, Liverpool.
Wasn't there that cartoon made of the Beatles where it was people impersonating a Liverpool accent? I don't remember if it was when they were still famous, but there was an actual TV show, The Adventures of the Beatles. Could you imagine, like, the cartoon show, The Adventures of One Direction? Oh, I don't know. I'm not meaning to offend any 14-year-old fans out there of One Direction. Just saying that.
Oh, don't chalk it down to 14-year-olds. I'm sure they've got fans of all ages.
I'm sure.
Hey, yeah, they won something, so that tells you something. I mean, I'm not a fan personally, but So that's the thing about. Do you think rises to fame are different or the same as they were when in Elvis's day, or do you think maybe Elvis actually earned it?
I think you clearly need to have some kind of, as we were saying earlier, some kind of talent that does make you deserve it to some point, to make it big in any era, no matter what your connections are. That being said, Elvis was both helped and hurt by the fact that then media was far more controlled. You had a small channel of what made music famous. Like back then, 80% what you heard on the radio. Now it's like 60%. Radio still makes a hit, but it's just the biggest contributor to it. Whereas back then, it was the contributor, basically. You needed to get on the main stations in all the main cities. And, once television came along, you had interviews and stuff propping you up. You had to gain access to those channels. Like, even in the 1980s, MTV, all Michael Jackson. And that's why it was different then. Like, everyone knows Michael Jackson, but no artist now can be quite as famous as the biggest artists were then. And that is saying something, because the biggest artists now
if they're
are
still famous today, that's saying something.
Well, I mean, absolutely.
I mean, they're really transcendent and historic.
But I mean, if you really want to avoid Taylor Swift nowadays, you can. You have to never listen to the radio.
As opposed to back in... They would definitely shove all that in your face.
Yeah, absolutely. And
anywhere you go, you couldn't avoid it, because it was, early days of radio.
Well, I mean, that was the thing.
TV definitely TV was still quite finding its feet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, TV was it was big. Everyone was getting a TV if they could. It was also seen as kind of a beginning of the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like the person who spends all their time in front of the TV.
Just like phones nowadays.
Oh, exactly.
We're all zombies because of our phones.
Exactly. It was, what a phone is now, or, the 40-year-old man that sits in his basement playing video games. That or, the college kid at 25 who still won't leave his home. That stereotype is the couch potato of yesteryear.
That's funny, because nowadays it's harder to leave home.
Oh, absolutely. In terms of economy. Now, and it's less stigmatized. I mean, don't get me wrong.
This is coming, by the way.
I'm in college now at 25, going back to learn radio. Yeah, exactly.
25, 22.
Yeah, it's a reality that we live in now. It's harder to get onto the scene, but I don't know. I do feel some desire to be able to become independent as soon as I can, just out of pride. Maybe that's even wrong of me, but my parents wouldn't want me around. They actually kind of like, I hate to say, but whenever I go home and I stay too long.
I'm a bit the same, but I'm kind of different. I'm just really focused on, my music.
Yeah.
And some people think I'm an idiot for that. Like, what is your opinion? Because this really does tie into Elvis, because he really went for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a bit easier back then, because you could just go to a record shop and cut a record for a couple bucks.
Sure.
And, if the guy liked it, he'd put it on the freaking radio. It's not like that. But anyway, where do you stand on the whole chasing your dreams thing? It can be for music, it can be for radio, for anything.
Chasing your dreams. I think that it's like anything. You should try and make it happen if you can make it happen. And at some point you need to choose what's worth it, the risk or the security, and nobody can answer that question for you. And it depends on who's in your life, how important they are to you. It depends on obviously your finances. We're incredibly privileged to live where we are and have the access to the opportunities that we do, because in most places it's just not an option. Like, I mean, if you look in the poorer countries, everybody tries to go for the top professions that'll get the most money and the most security, because it's that or good chance of poverty.
It's some countries though are better than us in some ways.
Oh,
some European countries have no tuition, so
yeah, it's all paid by the government,
some countries pay students to go to school.
Yeah, I wish. Well, I mean, we get helped a little. We get a little kind of reimbursed in Canada for it, but we still have that massive debt hanging around our necks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, at least we got loans, otherwise we would have been stuck, whatever our parents did if they worked in a factory job. We'd have a factory job too. Factory jobs probably give you more money than radio, though.
And there's really good temp services that get you those jobs nowadays too.
Yeah, well, for sure.
I mean, I know a couple people that they do factory work. They putting car parts together and all that.
Oh, I'm not saying that's not going to be us.
Yes.
I mean, there's a good chance of it.
If it's an opportunity,
Yeah, but I mean, radio, I do think that there's still a good chance to be able to get into it now, because it's a local thing and every station needs someone to work for them. With TV, it's falling apart. You wouldn't think so. You'd think it'd be radio, but radio already shrank.
I think I don't think radio is going anywhere anytime soon. Because
I don't think so.
It has proved itself again and again that it can evolve and change.
Knock on wood. You never know.
Knock on wood.
Yeah, but I agree. I think I mean, my brothers too. I love them dearly, and we're all very much into media stuff. We love making movies. My brother's studying film right now at Niagara, wanting to get into that. And my other brother, he's studying photography. I think his ultimate goal is film. They're fantastic photographers. My youngest brother is like a complete genius when it comes to color correction, which I know sounds like the most technical, nerdy thing there is, but like he got invited to a conference just based on his knowledge of color correction. He got like booted up through the ranks, and people that, you know, would not even imagine inviting someone like him from his position got him and said, we need you on our list, because he was that good, and because he's patient and he's smart and he finds the loopholes and he jiggers with something all night until he finds the absolute balance. Just like doing production in radio, I think. It's all about jiggering and finding the right balance. And that's where the genius comes along. It's luck. But, you know, he's incredibly intelligent as well.
You know, it's funny you talk about all the film and TV and all that. I really wanted to be an actor as a kid.
Oh, did you?
But, you know, I realized music is definitely, you have an advantage in music.
Well, I think...
in terms of TV, they're always, you know, about image.
Well, I mean...
There's spots in TV for people like me, overweight and less attractive. But I mean, in music, it's like Gene Simmons said, you can be an ugly shit like me and still make it.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call myself ugly or attractive particularly. I let other people decide, you know, which one I am or which blend of both that I am. But you know what? I would say that music is a more immediate way of getting to the emotions than any other art form.
Oh, definitely.
You know what?
In acting, you have to work hard to convey an emotion. In music, you can do it all in a hook.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I mean, I've wanted to get into voice acting. That being said, partly because I think I can do it, it's easier. It's way easier than doing realistic TV acting. Getting up on a stage, doing hammy musical theater stuff. I'm not saying anyone can do that. I'm saying it takes less talent. Oh my God, controversial. For me, I find it way easier than doing realistic acting, which I personally think I'm hopeless.
I didn't take musical theater because I found it a bit intimidating.
Well, maybe you did. I don't know. I was a ham in high school. I loved doing musicals.
Oh no,
they neneeded guys though. That was one reason why
I like to ham it up,
in.
But the musical part really intimidated me. I can get in front of a crowd with a band and sing, but you know, it's kind of different when you're trying to act at the same time.
Well, I mean, it's hard because when you go into a song, your first impulse is sound pretty. But that's with music too, I think. Your impulse is to sound pretty. And then the emotion suddenly vanishes.
I find it easier to just be a live music performer, and I find it more fun.
Yeah.
I find it more fun than acting, and you know, 5 years ago I might have kicked myself for saying that, but where I am now, I'm still the guy that wants to be the singer and all that.
I don't think I could say I prefer one over the other, but I see what you're saying. Like, for me, musicals are more interesting to me as an actor, not necessarily as a viewer or a spectator, than straight theater is. Except that I can't dance. That's the main thing that limits me.
No, I definitely acting and film is on the back burner, but I think that is... Call me an idiot for saying music isn't my hobby. It's what I do.
Well, do you know what? That's totally fine. I think that... Oh, do you mean like you're in radio, but music is what you do? Is that what you mean? Or do you mean like versus acting?
This is my, like, radio would be my fallback.
Oh, of course.
But it goes together with music. That's the thing. That's one of the reasons it attracted me.
Yeah.
Like, you can meet people, and you can... a few days ago, we all met Kim Mitchell, so... Yeah. How cool is that, right?
That's amazing. It's, well, I mean, because he does radio.
Yeah.
In Toronto. So,
but no, we met the A&R guy from Sony Music as well.
Yeah.
That's a big person to meet if you want to be a musician as well.
Oh, sure. And even,
Not saying I'm milking radio, though. Not saying I'm milking it, because I'm not milking it. I found announcing to be a great way to get, to be a voice.
Yeah, do you know what? I would say that if that's what I do for the rest of my life, I would be extremely happy. If I were just a local radio announcer for the rest of my life, I would aim for more, but I would be extremely happy because I am getting out of bed and I'm doing something that I actually like.
Can't say I wouldn't be. I'm one of those dreamers that I gotta have my music or nothing.
Right. Yeah.
I know. criticize me if you want.
No, I'm not going to criticize you because like if I had more, I would take it too. If that makes any sense.
I just I feel a lot of times because of this economy, it's unfair. It's unfair because people are more inclined to crush you because of your aspirations. Because one, finances are hard to come by.
They are, but you know what? I sometimes feel that it's all how you present it now. One thing I don't like about society is that you have to be extremely egotistical to get ahead. Not egotistical at your, heart, but egotistical in how you appear. And I don't like that. I don't like appearing, or maybe I do and I'm just unaware of it, but I don't like appearing egotistical. I don't like, and my first impulse is like to downplay myself. But the problem is when you do that, people think that you're actually shit. Like for me, when I say these sorts of things, like my goal isn't to become a local radio announcer or anything like that. It was like, I want to do music and I want to be the most famous singer of all time or something like that. Like,
yeah.
I'm just not comfortable saying that about myself because how dare I say that I have the talent to do that or I even have the luck and the connections to do that.
I never said that. I never said that myself.
True.
I'm one of those, I would be happy just being in a tribute band the rest of my life. Do I want to work on original things and see where that goes? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. If I get that far, great. But
Yeah.
I'm a kind of guy who likes to cover stuff too.
Sure.
So if I do a tribute band or a bar band the rest of my life and I can make a living off of that, then so be it. I mean, my expectations are not high.
Well, do you know what? You don't need to do something for a living to do it for the rest of your life and say, this is my real work. Because as far as, I love performing in general. If I were there in a bar doing music, I would feel, you know what? This is me at my height. Whereas if I was, and I had a decent sized audience, whereas I'm in a studio and I'm cranking out CDs that more people are listening to, or more likely now illegal downloads or whatever it is that more people are listening to, I would say, do you know what? I'm reaching more people, but I don't have that personal connection. I don't have a personal connection. There's nothing like
performing gives you the personal connection.
Yes, exactly. There's nothing like playing to a bar where everyone is wrapped in attention at you. And it doesn't necessarily need to be some kind of famous singer. It doesn't need to be some kind of famous venue. It just needs to be a room full of people wrapped at you and then sing us the song, You're the Piano Man. Because I play piano, so I don't know. Maybe now I am sounding full
Billy
of
Joel,
myself.
Man.
Yeah, well,
No, you got to have a passion about it. You can't let people, crush your passion. I think in a way Elvis had that a little bit easier. Nobody wanted
we have to get back to Elvis.
Crush him.
That's right. This is in fact about Elvis.
His mother was behind him 100%. His dad was a little bit more conservative, but they both supported him like hell. And the first time they heard him on the radio, they went to the theater where he was watching Marlon Brando movies. Yeah. And they pulled him out and said, "Listen to this. You're on the radio."
Yeah.
That's got to be a great moment for a mother and a father, but more so for him.
Well, and knowing that their trust in him paid off. Because the reason why parents are like that is because they don't want their child to suffer. Or if they're paying for education, they don't want to pay for education towards a useless job. But they don't want the kid to be lacking something in their life. So if it actually works, phew, thank God. That's I think really what it's more about. The parents choose security so much of the time because they know that chances are their kid isn't going to make it, and the vast majority of kids who get into it don't make it. But all of the kids who said, "I'm not going to risk it," will not make it.
No, you gotta
per se, because they never tried.
You have to jump. You sometimes you have to jump before you look.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's the difference between Elvis's parents and other parents, because most parents, even when they hear of someone doing something like, oh, you're getting into a band or something like that, well, don't you go throw away your life and, start practicing with that and, neglect the rest of your studies. There's sometimes an assumption that that's going to eat up your life. When no, that's not the case at all. Even if you are committed to another career path.
What if you wanted to eat up your life? That's completely your decision.
Well, A, it's your decision.
Your parents have to respect that.
Absolutely. And B, so what if you're slaving away in a job and you look forward to those 2 hours that you get to playing in a band? That's why we live, isn't it? We get the money to make us happy. Music makes people happy.
I think
the arts make people happy.
The ideal person has to be in the middle. As a parent, I'm not a parent, but I would be in the middle. I would be like chase something that maybe connects with what you want to do.
Yeah.
And radio is that for a musician. Radio is something that connects with what you want to do. And you make connections. You spin music. You get paid to listen to music all day.
Yeah.
If you're in radio. I mean, if you're an announcer even. And then you get to talk. Like, for somebody who likes to do that,
Yeah.
If you want to be an announcer.
That's true.
Hey, I'm a musician, but I'm also an announcer. Like, I don't know. It's just, it seems...
I think they go together. I think that there's a certain quality to people who have more of a musical bent because they don't just read the lines off monotonously. They think, how can I, give expression? See, here we are. We're sitting in a recording studio right now, and there's this guidelines sheet, studio use. Production studios 3-4 are off limits. Second-year students and 91X production require these rooms. You'll have plenty of opportunity to get in there later this school year. Now, most of the time, I'm not saying that was a good read. It was probably a handy.
Some guy's just going to be, if you're not really that inclined and you're not inclined to announce, you're just going to be, yes, studios are open.
And why wouldn't they? Because the material's dull as toast.
Yeah.
But somebody who cares about announcing is going to read it with expression.
And I mean, that's just what the studios at our college say.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Obviously you got to find, they have their rules like that, and you got to follow that. But going back to announcing, that's the difference between an announcer and a non-announcer. Some people in radio are out there for something else. They want sales, or they want promotions, or they want to do other things.
You make a lot more money, and hey, sales, is the same challenge as being an announcer. It's a social thing, basically. An announcer, it is about being charismatic.
Yeah,
it's
I
about
definitely connected a lot more with sales and promotions to go with with announcing. Look at this. We're talking about what career paths we're on now, isn't it?
We're so full of ourselves.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny where it goes from? Maybe I think for the last few minutes. We should really get back to the Elvis thing because we got to wrap this up soon.
Well, but that's what he did. He inspired people to go after their own dreams.
Because look what happened to him.
Yes.
So, and he had all the right things going for him. He had the opportunity. He had the job that gave him the money to go.
And he had the charisma that made it look easy. And I think that's why.
He went in and he said, I sing everything. Yeah. I don't sound like nobody.
Yeah.
And he also had supportive parents. I mean, they were probably middle ground parents, but from accounts, you can't base everything off the movies or what other people say, but it seems like his parents were maybe in between the middle and chase your dreams.
Yes.
They had a little bit of, blah, 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 but I think Elvis really went for all the small time jobs that he did. He went for it because it was that time where you really wanted to help your parents out.
Yes, exactly.
Now, in this society we live in, it's kind of some kids aren't like that.
No. Some
kids aren't like that because it's easier, but it's also harder financially, especially in the economy we live in for people.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed to have, I think, parents that were a lot like Elvis.
You know what? I think that it's a good thing because the kid sometimes naturally has their own sense of limiting themselves. In some ways, my parents were more chase your dreams than me because I was thinking about how am I going to make money. And, a lot of people who took radio did it because it was a kind of a middle ground. Radio is one of those places that I find is. And I'm admitting that with a lot of the people, they say, well, I wanted to be a musician. But I couldn't, so I'm in radio because it's surrounded but with music. And, that's a job where I can meet musicians, like you said. That's a very, very, very common thing.
I mean, just being in a class, I was really shocked to see how many other guys were like me. They're musicians, including you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't claim to be, some kind of genius with it or anything like that.
That's because you're humble. That's because you're humble. But I think you have the drive, and I think you were driven enough to learn it sufficiently. So you probably, I haven't heard you yet, but I can read that you're, I think, very talented.
Well, I don't know. I think that music is the only thing that I play down. The rest of it I either play up or I am accurate in. Music I play down. I think
I'm completely different, but maybe that's because I'm a singer.
the better I am at something, the more I'll play it down. The more insecure I am about something, the more I'll say, I can do this. I can nail this. Or I'll take the one thing I can do well, and then I'll say, I can nail this, and I'll ignore the rest of it.
I would say I'm insecure about my voice because then when I hear people like, you're good, what the hell are you talking about? Or my parents, you tend not to believe your parents because your parents have to say you're good.
I know.
But anyway, getting back to like middle ground parents, like really, do they want you to succeed in life? Do they want the best for you? Yeah, but if you are living your dream, are they gonna cheer you on and be like extremely thrilled?
Do you know what? In safe areas they do, because I'll tell you what, my parents, they have been tireless in reading. I write as well, and they've been tireless in reading my drafts and stuff like that, and like going over every little thing. My mother anyway. My father will read my stories, but he won't go over every single.
I get touchy if my parents ever read any of my songs.
Oh really?
Without asking.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm just more of a privacy prone person.
I guess that's fair.
Maybe I'm just embarrassed at my talent in writing. I don't know.
I would get that.
I mean, I get really embarrassed just if they hear me sing.
Because I'm only like this around my parents because I trust them.
I get embarrassed when they say, "Oh, you sounded good singing in your bedroom." Or I just get I don't know. Maybe I'm just I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just a little self-conscious.
I don't think my parents have ever praised my singing ability.
Oh, they praised me whenever I did performances that they were able to get to. And they've been to like most of my performances that I've done.
Yeah.
For my school band.
Yeah.
I mean, they were thrilled. I mean, thrilled to see me actually living it out. And I'm
Do they
I'm
sing
happy
themselves?
No comment. No comment. I don't think. No, I mean, my dad. Just hearing my dad sing, like he's older now, but he has fragments of something. Maybe he was a really good singer when he was my age.
They were both my parents. They were really good singers. Actually, everyone in my family is a good singer, I would say. That's probably why they never complimented me, because they're like, well, I can do that twice as good.
There are quite a lot of musicians in my family on one side. I mean, a lot of times at some of the family parties we'd have. There was one time at Christmas at my great aunt's house, we had like a karaoke jam, and a lot of my older cousins were singing, and it's just amazing. They're great. Yeah. My grandmother can pick a guitar like you wouldn't believe. I mean, she's in a band. She's in a band now with some other
Go Granny.
older women.
Go Granny.
Yeah, she's 74 years old, and she picks and she sings, and
she remembers Elvis from the original days.
Oh yeah, and she does. My grandma is just really really great at guitar.
Wow, you have to send me videos sometime of grandma, or if she's ever playing in a local venue, tell me the night.
Hey, we'll have to do it. She's in a band with a bunch of older women like her too, and they're called Camaraderie.
Oh, okay, huh?
So they do play a little bit, but that would be a great topic for a podcast.
That would be, actually.
They get some promotion. I mean, I don't know if they'd want to be associated with Group 6.
Maybe the title would be misunderstood by them, or maybe they're so innocent that they wouldn't. But I doubt it, because old people are actually really dirty-minded. They really are.
As a loving grandson, I think my grandma's everything to me. I'm pretty transparent with her.
Right.
So,
does she know you're a Levian Satanist? Or you have sympathy with Levian Satanists?
She doesn't care. She doesn't.
That's good.
She is an unconditional. She is. My grandma's amazing, is what I'm trying to say. She's very unconditional.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's very. I think she would be thrilled just to have that out there as a podcast.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do that sometime. Go to a camaraderie show and. Anyway, we should really get back to Elvis because we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
So
we've said that a few times, haven't we?
I know, but
yeah.
It's good that we go on tangents because we have a lot to talk about. We're not dull.
Yeah, that's right. We're not dull, unlike all those other people.
We're not running out of gas yet. This is the third podcast. This is just number 3.
Yeah.
But I think we've got enough material for like a few more.
Oh, we definitely do. At least.
Until we start playing with some
Do
other
you know
concepts.
what? Knowing you and me, we could actually get into we can do funny sometimes, but we're not really a funny podcast. But in terms of
Our first podcast was pretty funny.
yeah, no, I do you know what? I honestly think that for a while, the pilot is going to be my favorite podcast. No word of a lie. Especially the special guest that we had then. The special guest.
Yeah, quotations.
He was hilarious. But you know what? I think that we could, even if nobody wants to listen to us, we could talk for hours and hours and hours on end, and we could make podcast after podcast, and we would at least entertain ourselves. The goal is making sure that you guys actually care.
And our probably our couple circles of friends would probably listen.
Oh, I'm sure.
One of our profs, I won't name, has I said you have to promise me to listen to our podcast when all's said and done. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Anyway,
And you know what? Which one was it?
Hey?
Or maybe you can't say.
I don't want to say.
Okay.
On the air.
I'm sure that they will, because it's the end of the year and you're leaving the program, and they'll be like, "Oh well, I have to say goodbye to Brian by honoring this last wish."
Oh.
It's like in the funeral, the last wishes.
I really can't wait to get this all going. Really, anyway. We're really off talking. What I wanted to get back to is Elvis and his death. Really, what it boils down to is, do you believe, or do you at least think you could entertain the theories that were presented to you today?
I can entertain almost anything. I would put the likelihood of them very small, I have to admit. Sorry, but I entertain any belief.
You gotta say that the evidence that you read about, I mean, it's thought provoking, right?
I can understand why people believe that the arguments are airtight, because there are a lot of things you can use to substantiate it.
I mean,
I think that it fails a certain common sense test. But that being said, it is a fantasy, I'm sure, of a lot of celebrities. It is at very least a fantasy. I just think that there'd be some reason why he would need to come into the spotlight again, or there's something that would push him forward. I don't think it would be realistic.
I don't know. There's really a lot of things come into question, like the whole thing with him and Nixon and wanting to become, DEA, and apparently he was more.
That's better evidence.
He was more than just honorary.
That's better evidence.
I think he was using his status to really get into the drug world, even though, call him a hypocrite, he was using drugs himself. But whatever.
Well, you know what? They often use people who've been convicted of certain felonies at CIA locations.
I think no, it was because he was on prescriptions. Prescriptions equals okay, even though he was probably abusing. Anyway, he really wanted to get the coke dealers out of there, I guess. The rumor is he was on to the mob or something, and he was threatened. Lisa Marie was threatened. So hey, fake my death. Not only that, he had the music side going for him. Like, it was hard to be Elvis, and Colonel Parker had a really vice grip on him. Didn't want him to do A Star Is Born, which that role went to Chris Christopherson. I mean, he was touring out of his ass, really.
Yeah.
Touring really hard, and his health was declining. Like, some say his bowel problems was making him overweight. He was backed up a little. I don't know. I don't want to get into that, but anyway. There's just a lot of reason to suspect maybe there's nothing buried under all that concrete, and that's why there's concrete there in his grave.
It's very interesting.
Now, I'll tell you about the
Do you know what? I think I am actually going to put this in the religion file. Like, I don't know if I can believe in it, but I can feel the appeal of it, and I can almost convince myself to believe in it.
Just think about his casket.
If I approach it from an emotional point of view. And I actually think that's the appropriate point of view to approach this with, because this is honoring an idol. This, and a way that's representative of what happens. He doesn't die. And as sacrilegious as some viewers might find this, it's like the empty tomb, isn't it? He is Jesus.
I was just about to say, he's definitely a musical Jesus, and some people are still holding out for that second coming. I don't think that's coming. I think he'll stay in this.
Maybe there'll be no Armageddon with Elvis.
There are lots of
musical Armageddon.
There are lots of rumors out there in the conspiracy circle that he's planning a comeback. But I mean, the man's 80 years old. I mean,
yeah.
Though I think if he's alive, he got himself back into shape. I don't think he's gonna want to commit to the coming back. Maybe he'll do, if he's alive, he'll do one thing, like a one-off, and say, "Yeah, I'm back. I'm sorry. This is why I had to do this, but now I'm not under a threat anymore."
Yeah.
That's why I think his life was threatened, among the other things that it was hard to be him.
Yes, I agree.
But just go back to the coffin. One of his cousins took a camera in there, and he said that wasn't him in the coffin.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, there was sweat coming off the body, and that would maybe point to a wax figure. Now, reports say the coffin was over 900 pounds, and it took a lot to carry it in. Air conditioning system, maybe. I mean, there's just some evidence. Now, there's evidence that there was definitely an autopsy and that they have his heart and all that still in storage, but whatever. Anyway, it really got us onto an interesting tangent and different topics regarding music and all that. And really, worship of a god. I mean, it really is semi-religious thing that Elvis really started to create. So, do you think Elvis is in or might have been in Tweed?
That might be going a little bit too far, but you know what?
They said he was in Sterling too. He visits Sterling.
You know what? If it makes the people of Tweed happy, I'm not going to take away their pride.
Maybe we might ought to take a trip to the wilderlands of Marlbank.
I think we should. I think we should investigate this ourselves.
Hey, we can always do an on the road podcast sometime. I had that in the mind.
Yeah, you know what? We need to get ourselves a decent portable mic, and then we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, as you can tell, we're really broke. But
student loan debt.
All right, awesome.
You know what? I was thinking when Jesse Ventura had that show, Conspiracy Theory, I was praying, oh, please do Elvis, because there's some government stuff in there.
Yeah.
Couldn't you just imagine? Oh, did Elvis commit suicide or did he fake his death? There's lots of evidence. By the way, there is evidence that it might have been a suicide too. I didn't want to go into that.
Yeah.
There's definitely the stuff of him not wanting to be himself anymore.
Suicide I find very plausible, very believable, because I think that when it comes to that, there's precedent for it, there's motive for it, and there's nothing like weird or hard to conceal about it.
No. But anyway, Jesse Ventura, man.
Yeah.
We always got to come back to Jesse Ventura at some point. I don't know what's going on with Elvis. Well, let's go over to Tweed and find him.
Yeah.
Let's go to Graceland, and why won't they let me upstairs? I'm a former governor.
Well,
former governor.
Mr. Ventura.
Former Governor Ventura.
I'm pretty sure you don't get titles in reverse. In like retrospective titles. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you do.
They should let me in. They should let me upstairs. They'd see his bedroom.
Sir, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what? If it made Jesse Ventura happy, I'd call him his eternal dick-sucking majesty. Whatever it is that, he wants to be called.
I gotta be honest, I do respect Jesse Ventura and what he's trying to do. I think he really cares about America.
Yeah.
But impersonations of him, you just can't deny that.
He's really easy to mock.
I just have to put it on record, I do respect him a lot. I mean, just as a politician himself, I mean, I think he wants to do what's right.
Yeah.
So if he gets elected president in 2016, all right, you just can't deny. I know I'm a Canadian, but whenever there's a new president, a lot of stuff that goes on in America affects us.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. We're tight knit. I mean, we're like.
That was so weird. It was like, what were we gonna say? Oh yeah, we're very tight knit, and we're very close as nations. I think a lot of Canadians sometimes forget the fact that they're separate countries. I don't think any American ever would, but Canadians in particular are almost underplay the differences between Canada and the U.S. nowadays. But anyway, that wraps it up. But you can check us out on the web at. We'll make up the website name when we make the website. On SoundCloud,
If we
probably?
do come up with the website, I don't know.
I don't know if we ever will, but we'll have a YouTube channel, I'm sure, and we'll have SoundCloud.
Yeah, this is all like in the stages of planning. Let's first try to get the podcasts going, up onto a podcast site and then. Anyway,
thank you again, guys, for listening.
This has been the Group 6 podcast.
And we will see you
later.